Welcome to the Journey Midweek Connection. So glad that you're tuning in with us today. Before we begin, I want to make sure that you know that you are invited to our 4th of July picnic coming up on Monday the 4th, starting at 11 o'clock at Wallapai Mountain Park. We're going to have an awesome barbecue lunch together. There's going to be inflatables for the kids. It's just going to be a wonderful time of fellowship. And so we hope you'll join us for that. As you come, make sure you bring a lawn chair because I think space will be limited. This is a really highly attended event. And then if you're willing to bring a side dish or a dessert, we would appreciate that as well. When we all contribute to something like this, we usually all eat pretty good. It's a great time. I want to begin today by talking about life, specifically how life isn't easy. We want it to be, but it often isn't. There's lots of highs in life, and we love those seasons, but there's a steady stream of lows. When we start to experience trouble in our lives, usually our first reaction is to try to do something very proactive to get rid of it. As soon as a trouble comes into my life, I want it gone. I want it dealt with. Last week, I got to hear an awesome sermon from a preacher at a conference, and the sermon that he gave that hit me very much personally was on pressure. Tough times in our lives produce a type of pressure. And so we're actually spending large chunks of our lives under pressure. Our marriages can struggle, and that can bring pressure. Our jobs can be high pressure. Trying to provide for our families while inflation is jacking up all the prices, that's a form of pressure. For this particular sermon, this pastor used the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Do you ever have a surreal moment where you're looking at where you're at in a specific moment and you think, how did this happen? How did I get here? How did this come to this? I'm sure you've had moments in your life like that. I think the ultimate example of this is Daniel chapter 6, where Daniel is being thrown into the lion's den and he didn't do anything wrong. Daniel was trying to live a godly life in a sinful world, in a depraved culture, and his reward was the pressure of the lion's den. Now it's here where the pastor took kind of a left turn, and I want to share with you what he shared with us. He explained to us basically how an oyster makes a pearl. Now, an oyster lives under the ocean. It's already got the pressure and the weight of water working against it. And an oyster is a little mussel, and it is trying with all of its might to keep itself from having sand come in. And so it's clamped shut. It's trying to avoid sand. But like how happens in life, you can do everything you can to avoid trouble, and somehow something little is going to sneak in and cause a big problem. And that's what happens with an oyster. Eventually, a piece of sand will work its way through its defenses, and now that mussel has the irritation of a grain of sand. And so this oyster will put forth just a tremendous amount of energy trying to expel that grain of sand. But of course, it doesn't have the anatomy to pull that off. And so it'll work for months and months. It'll be under great stress. It's not comfortable at all, trying to get rid of that grain of sand. But the turning point comes when it realizes, okay, that sand isn't going anywhere. And so then it grabs that piece of sand. It secretes this mucus that it makes, and it puts that grain of sand under pressure itself. It grabs a hold of it and it puts it under pressure itself. And then over a long period of time, that grain of sand, which was a huge irritant and the thing that it wanted to get rid of, the oyster is able to turn that into a pearl. And so I want to share with you some of the points that the pastor then made with that. He said, you can't have pearls without pressure. Pressure can produce something precious. If God gives you pressure, He will use it to make you strong. So what you're up against, that pressure that you're fighting with, God is actually building up you. He's building up your interior muscles. You're going to find yourself, next time you face something similar, you're going to be a lot bigger and stronger to face it. When Daniel was under pressure, he didn't fall into the trap of self-pity. He didn't sit around saying, why me? He understood that in this life, pressure happens. He wasn't caught off guard, and he didn't get stuck in self-pity, which I can be tempted to do. When I have enough pressure and enough things going on in my life, sometimes I'll go home at the end of the day and I'll be like, this wasn't supposed to be this hard. This was supposed to be easy or whatever. The pastor shared that God always has a purpose for our pressure. So that's kind of encouraging. It's not needless. And he said, even that pressure, even that thing, that annoying situation, that difficult challenge, even that, God has a plan. When God allows pressure to impact you, it means that he's actually investing in you. So take that to heart as well. Well, Daniel, he stayed faithful under pressure. That's our job. More than anything else, when we're under extreme pressure, we need to stay faithful. He stayed faithful under pressure. He was blessed. And when he survived that big test, the result of his faith that withstood the pressure, the result of his faith was that he had an amazing witness to his world, specifically to King Darius, king over all of Babylon. Now, the reason Daniel got into this mess was because Darius had issued a decree at the recommendation of his advisors that no one should worship any other god except the man, Darius. And so Darius had agreed to that. What's amazing is after spending time with Daniel, watching Daniel's faith, seeing how Daniel persevered under pressure, this is how he talked when Daniel came out of the lion's den. Then King Darius wrote to all the nations and peoples of every language in all the earth, "May you prosper greatly. Today I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he's the living God and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." So Daniel then prospered under the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Isn't it amazing? Daniel's pain, Daniel's unfair circumstances, because he stayed faithful in it, ended up turning a king from saying, "I should be the one to being worshipped," to declaring to the whole nation, Daniel's God is the real God. He is the one who should be feared and held in awe. Pretty encouraging. So I don't know what kind of pressures you're up against today. I don't know what you're struggling against, but I promise you the Lord is going to use those pressures to make you strong. My encouragement to you is stay faithful so that you can harvest along with him the fruit of that faithfulness. Hang in there, my friends. Have a great rest of your day.